Welcome to Mission APSC AIJ YouTube channel. আজি আপোনালোকক এই লাইভ ক্লাছটোৰ যোগেদি আমি ডিছকাছ কৰিব লৈছোঁ ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন ইঞ্জিনিয়াৰিঙৰ বেছিক পাৰ্ট, যিটো পাৰ্ট APSCৰ এক্সামতো আহে বা চিভিলৰ যিকোনো কম্পিটিটিভ এক্সাম দিব গ'লে উই হেভ দিছ পাৰ্ট, ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন পাৰ্ট. চ' আজি এই ভিডিঅ'টোত বা এই লাইভ ক্লাছটোত উইল ট্ৰাই টু ডিছকাছ এবাউট all about the basic foundation কি হয়, ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনৰ প্ৰত্যেকটো টাইপ will try to discuss. যদি আপোনালোকৰ লাইভ ক্লাছটো কৰি ভাল লাগে দেন প্লিজ চেনেলটো ছাবস্ক্ৰাইব কৰি দিব, লগতে কমেণ্ট ছেকশ্যনত জনাব যদি আপোনালোকে উপকৃত হৈছে বুলি ভাবে. So we'll today discuss about the foundation. So first of all আমি জানিব লাগিব foundation বুলিলে কি বুজায়. Okay, so we have to know what is foundation. So we'll try to start now our class. So first thing is foundations. Here in this slide you can see the foundations. Okay, so যেতিয়া আমি বিল্ডিং এটা বনাব যাওঁ, at that stage we are providing at the below the plinth level we are providing some foundations. So ইয়াতে আমি suppose কিবা এটা বনাব গৈছো, ইয়াৰ যিটো প্লিন লেভেলৰ তলত আমি কি কৰোঁ, কিছুমান ষ্ট্ৰাকচাৰ প্ৰভাইড কৰোঁ. That structure is basically nothing but foundation engineering, right? So this is foundation engineering. Okay, so next we have to know the introductions of foundation. What is foundation basically? So foundation বুলি যদি আমি ক'ব যাওঁ, a structure which is essentially consists of two parts, namely the superstructure which is above the plinth level and the substructure which is below the plinth level. ইয়াতে কৈছে কি আমি যেতিয়া যিকোনো এটা structure বনাব যাওঁ, in that particular structure we have one plinth level. Suppose এইটো আমাৰ plinth level হয়, plinth levelৰ ওপৰৰ যিখিনি structure, okay, this the ওপৰৰ যিখিনি structure সেইখিনি কোৱা হয় superstructure. So that is called as superstructure, right? Superstructure. আৰু যিখিনি আমাৰ তলৰ হয় প্লিন লেভেলৰ যিখিনি আমাৰ তলৰ হয়, that is known as substructure or that is known as substructure. So আমি foundation code provide কৰো below the plinth level, that is substructure. Okay, so আমি foundation code provide কৰো, we are providing the foundation below the plinth level, right? So in this case I can say that foundation is the another name of foundation is basically the another name of foundations is, we can say that the another name of foundations we can say that substructure, right? Okay, let me discuss. So here you can see that the substructure, যিটো আমাৰ substructure হয়, that substructure is basically called as plinth level, right? So substructure is otherwise known as foundation and this form of base of the structure. গতিকে foundation আমি base of the structure বুলি ক'ব পাৰো, right? It is also called as base of the structure. Okay, base of the structure. Generally 30% of the total construction cost is spent on the foundations. Okay, যদি আমাৰ বিল্ডিং এটা বনাবলে suppose we are required 50 lakhs. Okay, আমি বাজেট কৰিলো suppose 50 lakhs. We are required 50 lakhs for complete construction of an buildings, and ইয়াৰ যিটো 30%, that is 50 lakhs 30%. Okay, it is around, you can say that 15 lakhs. So 50 re 15 lakhs আমি কি কৰিম, we will try to spend in foundation. So you can determine, or you can give a rough idea how much importance of this particular structure, that is foundation. So foundation ote ami 15 lakh toka spend koribo lagibo jodi ami 50 lakh toka building eta banabo jao, right? So he karone foundation is very very important. So আমি ফাউন্ডেশন কেনেকুৱা হয়, কি কি টাইপৰ হয়, সেই গোটেইখিনিৰ বিষয়ে জানিব লাগিব. হোৱাট আৰ দ্য অবজেক্টিভ অফ ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনছ? So if you say that what are the objective of foundation, first objective is, you can say that, to distribute the total load coming from the structure on a larger area. Okay, so structure যিবিলাক loads আহি আছে, structure এটা সৰু এৰিয়া হয়, right? So এই ইয়াৰ পৰা যিখিনি load আহিলে ই কি কৰিব, ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনৰ যোগেদি the load will transfer to the soil, right? So ইয়াতে আমাৰ সারফেস এরিয়াটো কম আছিলে, ইয়াত আমাৰ যেতিয়া load to distribute হৈ গল in the soil, obviously the surface area of the soil is more as compared to the structure. So সেই যেটো কাম কৰে, সেই কামটো basically foundations se kore. Okay, to distribute the total load coming on the structure on a larger area. Okay, larger area loads kini spread kori diye. Secondly, we can say that to support the structures, so it will support the structure. And thirdly, to give enough stability to the structure against various disturbing. Okay, etue ki kore, stability o dibo pare. Okay, such as wind, rain, jodi amar borokhun ahe, jodi amar wind ahe, so hetu homoy building to jate collapse na hoy, so tar jetu basic strength, hey strength to foundation e dier. Okay, so we have always try to make foundation in such a way so that the total load which is coming on the structure should be converted to a larger area loads. And secondly, it should support the structure. Thirdly, it gives enough stability and structure against various disturbing force. And lastly, you can say that to prepare a level surface of concreting and masonry works, right? So concreting or masonry work or karneo it is useful. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. So what is basically types of foundation? Amar foundations keita prokarar ase, what are the types? This is very very important. So foundationer khetrot we have two main types of foundation. Amar duta foundations ase. First foundation is, you can say that, shallow foundation or spread foundation, and second is deep foundation. Both is jane. So shallow foundation, if you provide the foundation at the deep level, then it is deep foundations, or if the height of the foundations is less, then we can say it is a shallow foundation, right? So tetia ami ki kom, shallow foundation boli kom. Okay, then deep foundation or height to beshi thake. What are the types of shallow foundation? So we have isolated footings. This is a type of shallow foundation. Then we have combined footing. What are the types of deep foundation? Deep foundation or types hisabe we can say that pile foundation, we can say that pyre foundation. We have two types of main foundations. Keteba hudi die what is the difference between pile and pyre. So apnaloke ei video to jetia hekholeke sabo, you can clear about what is the difference between pile and pyre, right? So etu keteba hudi die. Then pile foundation e ako kisuman bhag ase. Pile foundation ki hoy? Pile foundation basically we can say that it is a deep functions types. And hey pile foundation ke ami ako duta type of bhagabo paro. One is friction piles, another is load bearing piles, and another special type of pile is there, that is under rim piles. Okay, under rim piles, it is a type of load bearing pile. So under rim ki hoy, we are providing some bulb. Okay, these bulbs কি কারণে আমি প্রোভাইড করব সেইখিনিৰ বিষয়ে আমি ডিটেইলস ডিসকাশন কৰিম. So coming to the next slide. So next slide on আমাক কি কৈছে, yes, it is about the shallow foundation. So আমি shallow foundation এর বিষয়ে আগত পঢ়িলো. In this figure you can see this is a masonry footings and this is RCC footing. Okay, these are basically example of isolated footing. Okay, so shallow foundation, in the depth of the foundation is less than or equal to width. So যিটো আমাৰ ডেপথ হ'ব, let's suppose this is a foundation, and this is suppose ground level, right? So ground level or পৰা foundation লৈকে suppose আমাৰ height টো আছে h, suppose this height is h, and suppose the width of the foundation is b, okay? Width of the foundation is b and the height is h. If the depth of the foundation, that means h, right? If depth of the foundation is less than its width, that means b, or equal to its width, then we can say it is a shallow foundation, right? Or deep foundation or ক্ষেত্ৰত কি হ'ব, the reverse of this condition, that is h should be greater than b, okay? h টো যদি আমাৰ widthতকে foundation widthতকে বাঢ়ি যায়, then we can call it is a deep foundation, right? So তেতিয়া আমি তাক কি বুলি কম, deep foundation বুলি কম, okay? So next we have isolated footing. In case of isolated footing, you can say it is a single footing or column footing. Suppose amar eta column ase, this is a suppose column to tolot just below the column we are providing some isolated footing, right? So isolated bili ki koa hoy, kyo koa hoy yak, because there is no connections. So yar jitu load upor pora jitu load ahe, this whole load will bear by the individual footings, okay? Yar logot kuno belek footing or connection nai, that's why it is an isolated footing, okay? In a frame structure where several columns are to be constructed, isolated footings can be adopted. The columns involved can be provided with masonry or concrete footings. Generally columns jila ami ketiba masonry ba ketiba ami RCC footing provide koro. If masonry fitting is provided, the steps are given in the foundation areas in thus increase that the stress develop as base within the limit. So step kisuman ami diu, okay? These are the steps. In case of masonry footing, the projection of each step ami kiman to bohai jao step to. So we are trying to give prothom stage ot ami jodi iman to dio tar pisot ami olop increase korim. So ami kiman to increase koru, basically we are increasing half brick thick, okay? So adha brick ami increase koru poti to step ot in case of isolated foundation jodi eto masonry hoy. Aru ketiaba one aru duta bricks ekelogeu dia hoy, right? Concrete can be molded to any shape, and hence a concrete footing may be sloping one to the sufficient spread, right? So we can say that these are the examples of isolated footings. This is the slope column footing, this is the simple wall footing, this is the simple column footing, this is steep wall footing, this is steep column footings, and this is the spread foundation, right? So you can see the example of isolated footing. Etu ami isolated footing bili kyo kom, because this is the column, yar logot kuno belek connection nai, column to tolot eta individual footing ase, that individual footing is basically isolated footing, right? So this is a column or tolot ami iron plate ketiaba use koru, and concrete plate use koru, steel beam grillage di diu, columns di diu, then it is an basically the example of single column footings, or it is, you can say that isolated footing, right? So this is again the example of isolated footing or wall footing. This is the wall, a wall took individually, this particular footing takes this loads, right? So he karone etu ki hoy, isolated footing, okay? Next we have combined footing. So next another type of footing is combined footing. Combined footings, the word itself says it is in combine, alright, okay? So in this plan view you can see that this is one column, this is two column. So a duta column or karone we are providing commonly one particular foundation, tetia hetuk ami ki kom, combined footing bili kom. So combined footing ketia adopt kora hoy, very very important, hudi die combined footing is adopted when the space between two columns is so small so that the foundation for individual column will overlap. Suppose amar eta small area ase, tat ami duta column bahabo lage, this is one column, this is one column. Jodi ami individual footing eta banabo jao prottektu column or khetrot, then a particular area tut ami duta column duta ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন প্ৰভাইড কৰিবলৈ যথেষ্ট টান হৈ যায়, ৰাইট? চ' সেইটো কণ্ডিশ্যনত আমি কি কৰিম? ৰেডাৰ দেন প্ৰভাইডিং ইণ্ডিভিজুৱেল ফুটিং, we are providing one common footing which will work for both the columns, right? So teneke jeti ami foundation eta bonam construct korim, then we can say it is a combined footing. Obviously the strength of combined footing is less than the isolated footing, because isolated footing ot ki hoy ami individually di asu, eta footing or tolote ami structure di asu, right? Tene dhorone, but combined footing ot we are giving two, suppose duta column ase, we are providing a combined footing, right? So combined footing are proportionate in such a way that the center of the gravity of the load coincide with the center of gravity of the foundations. Hence these footings have either trapezoidal or rectangular shape. So ami combined footing jetia design koru, we always see where the center of gravity acts. Suppose a column to amar 100 kilonewton loi ase, let's suppose, aru a column to suppose we have 300 kilonewton. যদি আমি ইয়াৰ মিড পইণ্টটোক লৈ পেলাই আমি এজুম কৰি পেলাই আমি যদি ইয়াতে ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন বহাব যাওঁ, দেন আৱাৰ ডিজাইন উইল বি ৰং, বিকজ আমি ইউনিফৰ্মলি লোড ডিষ্ট্ৰিবিউট হৈ থকা নাই। উই আৰ নট কনচিডাৰিং দ্য মিড পইণ্ট। এই মিড পইণ্টটোতে চবতকৈ হাইষ্ট লোড আহিব বুলি আমি ক'ব নোৱাৰোঁ। উইল কনচিডাৰ দ্য ইচেণ্ট্ৰিচিটি অৰ উইল কনচিডাৰ দ্য উইল ট্ৰাই টু প্ৰভাইড মোৰ এৰিয়া, দ্য কলম which coming more loads, jitu column amar besi load ahi ase hei column tur karone will try to provide more area. So hei karone amar shape tu hodai ami rectangular shape lobo nwaro, because column ketale jibilak load ahibo, these loads are variable. Kisuman kunuba eta column or karone load besi ahibo, kunuba eta column or karone load kom ahibo. So jitu column or load besi ahe, we have to provide more area on that particular side, right? So it has two common size, one is trapezoidal shape and another is rectangular shape. So footings are basically structural members which is used to support the columns and walls, and the main functions which we already discussed, it is transmit and distribute their loads to the soil in such a way that the load bearing capacity of the soil doesn't exceed. So আমি ফুটিং কিয় প্রভাইড কৰো? টু ইনক্রিজ দ্য লোড বিয়ারিং ক্যাপাসিটি অফ দ্য সয়েল, রাইট? সো প্রত্যেক সয়েলরে, সাপোজ দ্য সয়েল ইজ স্যান্ডি সয়েল, সাপোজ দ্য সয়েল ইজ কোহেসিভ সয়েল, প্রত্যেকরে ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ডিপেন্ডিং আপন দ্য ফিল্ড কন্ডিশন, ডিপেন্ডিং আপন দ্য নেচার অফ দ্য সয়েল গ্রেইনস, আমার কি হয় বিয়ারিং ক্যাপাসিটিটো ডিফারেন্ট হয় প্রত্যেকটো সয়েল। যদি কৰবাত লুজ সয়েল আছে, কৰবাত এক্সপানসিভ সয়েল আছে, সো এক্সপানসিভ সয়েল যদি থাকে তেতিয়া হলে তাত কি হ'ব? অবভিয়াসলি লোড বিয়ারিং ক্যাপাসিটিটো কম হ'ব সয়েলৰ। সো তেনেকুৱা ক্ষেত্ৰত উইল প্ৰভাইড ডিপ ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন। সো আমি বহুত ডিপলৈকে ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনটো ডিপ কৰিম, ৰাইট? সো ইট উইল প্ৰিভেণ্ট দ্য এক্সেছিভ সেটেলমেণ্ট যদি আমি ডিপলৈকে ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনটো কৰোঁ ইন কেছ অফ এক্সপানসিভ সয়েল, ৰাইট? সো উই হ্যাভ টু কনচিডাৰ অল ফেক্টৰ্ছ while designing a foundation, right? Next we'll try to see what is the size of the footing. So it is also important. Amar footing or size to ami keneke determine kori. The area of the footing can be determined from actual and external loads such that allowable soil pressure is not exceed. Okay, that means ami footing or size to determine koribole eta factor hisabe external load. Suppose amar duta column ase, if you have two columns, suppose you have two, if we have two columns, amar duta column ase, this is one column, this is another column. Suppose eta load ahi ase 300, eta ahi ase 200. We are giving more area in this 300 kilonewtons load, and in case of 200 we are giving less area, so the shape will be trapezoidal, right? So সেই কাৰণে, so যিটো আমাৰ external load ahi ase hetu eta factor hoy for determining the size of footing. And another thing we always try to consider that আমি যেতিয়া ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন এটা বহাব গৈ থাকিম তাত allowable soil pressure টো যাতে এক্সিড নহয় সেই কথাটো আমি চেক কৰিব লাগিব। সো এৰিয়া অফ দ্য ফুটিং আমি ডিটাৰমাইন কৰিবলৈ কি কৰোঁ? টোটেল ৱেইটটো আমি চাওঁ আৰু টোটেল ৱেইটেৰে আমাৰ যিটো allowable soil pressure আছে সেইটোক ডিভাইড কৰি দিওঁ। সো তেতিয়া আমি এৰিয়া অফ দ্য ফুটিং পাওঁ। দ্যাট মিনছ Suppose আমাৰ structure-টোৰ load আহি আছে 300 kilonewton আৰু যিটো self weight হয় structure-টোৰ suppose 100 kilonewton. So suppose we have 400 external load including the self weight, right? So নিজৰ self weight-টো আছে কলমৰ and plus 300 kilonewton আছে external load, 100 kilonewton suppose self weight of that particular foundation. Suppose সেই যিটো জেগাত আমি ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন বহাব গৈ আছো, যিটো জেগাত আমি ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন বহাব গৈ আছো সেইটো জেগাত যদি allowable soil pressure-টো আমাৰ suppose 24 kilonewton per meter square. So we will divide 24 kilonewton per meter square. So then what will happen? This kilonewton cancel out, and 24, if you divide 400 to 24, then you can get approximately 16.67, right? 16.67 meter square. So we'll try to provide the footing area as 16.67 meter square. So this is the basic concept how to determine the size of footing. Okay, so next we can have look on pile. So pile to amar ki asile? Pile is basically a type of deep foundation, right? Pile to amar ki hoy? Deep foundation or eta type hoy, right? So pile we can say as a slender members. So pile to kami slender member hisabe kobo paru. We can tell it is an slender member. Okay, pile is a slender member. It is a structural member which consists of steel or concrete or timber. Pile ami basically steel, notoba concrete, notoba timber e banao. Okay, why it is installed or at what location it is installed? It is installed in the ground. So etu ami ground dot install koru to transfer the structural load to the soil at some significant depth below the base of the structure. Okay, so pile বিলাক আমি গ্ৰাউণ্ডত put কৰি দিওঁ বা install কৰোঁ so that the structural load which is coming from the buildings to the soil, okay, at the some significant depth below the base of the structure, right? Next we can have pile caps. Pile caps to basically pile or upor jitu cap hoy, that is nothing but pile caps. Pile caps are basically slab, you can say, or a tie group of piles together to support and transmit the column loads to the piles. Okay, it is a pile group which support the column loads to the piles. Okay, so this is the examples of pile caps. This is the example of pile cap. You can see in the figure, this is pile cap, these are the piles. So bahut khini piles ami ki koru pile cap or jogedi ami connection kor diu, right? This is pile cap is basically slab type structure. Okay, next deep foundations. So we'll try to discuss about deep foundation. Deep foundation consists of pile and pier foundation. So deep foundation or duta type is one type is pile foundation, another type is pier foundation, right? In case of deep foundation, it consists of pile and pier foundation. This consists in carrying down through the soil a huge masonry cylinder which may be supported by the sides of the soil or may be supported on the solid rock hard stratum, right? And pile foundation is basically, pile is an element of construction which is used in foundations. It may be driven, pile can be driven type or hobo pare in the ground vertically or with some inclination. Ketiaba inclination di pelai pile to ami install koru aru ketiaba ami direct vertically ground dot pile to install koru. Okay, so we have several types of pile foundations also. So we'll discuss one by one. So piles are basically loads are supported in two ways. Piles or loads bila amar duta with support provide koru. If the load is supported by the effect of friction between the soil and the pile skin, then it is called friction piles. If the friction piles may be made of cast iron, cement, concrete, timber, steel, wrought irons, and composite materials, right? If the load is supported by the resistance of the piles on the very hard stratum, it is called load bearing pile. So pile or duta types ase. One is end bearing pile and another is friction piles. I'll try to understand or moi bujabo try korim what is pile foundations types. In suppose amar etu eta pile. Okay, so pile or tolat suppose at a hard stratum ase. This is the soil. সইলৰে হাৰ্ড ষ্টেটাম এটা আছে যেতিয়া আমি পাইলত লোড আহিব তেতিয়া কি হ'ব এই যদি অকল যদি এই হাৰ্ড ষ্টেটাম ডাইৰেক্ট যদি পাইলটোৱে লোডখিনি হাৰ্ড ষ্টেটামটোক দিব পাৰে দেন ইট ইজ ন'ন এজ এণ্ড বিয়েৰিং পাইলছ আৰু যদি লোডবিলাক আমাৰ ট্ৰান্সফাৰ হয় by the friction ইয়াতো আমাৰ soil থাকিব এইটো সাইডে আমাৰ soil থাকিব by the friction between the soils and the pile then that is called as friction pile so this is the basic difference between friction piles and you can say that this end bearing piles friction pile may be made of cast iron friction pile bilak ami cast iron ba cement concrete ba timber steel wood irons and composite material or দ্বারা আমি বনাও if the load is supported by resisting the piles on a very hard stratum then it is called load bearing structure তেতিয়া আমি এটো load bearing structure বুলি কম okay load bearing piles are steel so load bearing piles bilak steel or hoy sheet pile hoy ba concrete piles hoy ba timber pile hoy right then we'll move to the load bearing piles this is the image of load bearing piles if you're coming to the load there and this load directly distributed to the hard stratum right so it is a pile cap it is the column it is the ground surface in case of soft soil it provides little support যদি soft soil হয় then we'll try to provide some little support and in case of friction piles the load is transferred for the frictions okay in case of cohesive soil actually basically cohesive soil or ক্ষেত্ৰত দৰকাৰ হয় because cohesive soil কি হয় friction থাকে so the sides of the piles with the frictions okay so this is all about the friction pile and load bearing piles this is the image of load bearing and friction piles then if you provide the piles in a certain angles then it is or inclination that we can say it is a better piles here in this figure you can see these are the better piles okay so in the next video we'll try to discuss or the next live class we'll try to discuss about the foundations of underrim piles ki hoy what the applications gutei khini ami discuss korim so thank you for watching please যদি আপোনালোকৰ চেনেলটো চাই ভাল লাগে please like share and subscribe কৰি দিব thank you for watching